In this video, you're going to learn what is the goals, signals, and measures play, pre-work necessary to run the play, how to facilitate the play, how to follow up after running the play, as well as learn expert facilitation tips and tricks from real Atlassians. Have you ever heard the phrase outcomes over outputs? Now, all teams deliver and build things, right? You could be a software team building features, you could be a marketing team building marketing plans, or maybe you're an HR team that's building an onboarding checklist. All these things are things we produce, but does the producing of these things mean that we've added value? Do they mean we've hit a goal? Nope. Producing a thing does not mean that we've hit the intended outcome or goal state. Instead, teams need to shift their way of thinking. They need to focus more on the outcomes they're trying to deliver and let that determine what they're going to build. They need to move to start focusing on the goals, signals, and measures of their work. The goals, signals, and measures play is designed to help you identify the goal you're trying to achieve, how you want to visualize the outcome by creating signals to track your progress, as well as target measured changes in user behavior or opinion at the end of the day. Whether you're starting a new project or kicking off the next fiscal year, running this play will help ensure your team doesn't just produce something, but that they produce something that actually makes a dent in that goal that you have. To ensure you get the most value out of the goals, signals, and measures play, I recommend you go understand your team's larger purpose, that why statement. And a good artifact to do this with is going to be your team vision statement. Now, if you don't have a vision statement, you're in luck. The vision creation play in the team playbook is a great play to help you identify and crystallize on what that vision is. We don't want to find ourselves setting goals for outcomes that we just don't understand, right? When setting your goals, I typically recommend targeting a time frame of 6 to 12 months. Any less than that, and you're going to find that your signals and measures might be too granular. You won't be able to learn a lot from that. Any longer than that, you're going to find your signals and measures are too broad, and you won't be able to learn from that either. Goals, signals, and measures is an incredibly collaborative brainstorming session, so I typically recommend using a tool like Confluence whiteboards to hold the exercise. Now, if you're all in person, you can certainly use sticky notes and Sharpies. I know those have a tender place in my heart, but at the end of the day, you need to remember that you're going to eventually need to translate that data into a digital tool so you can share it with others. Whatever the case, whatever thing you choose to use, just make sure that your team vision and any guardrails are visible on the tool so that your team can see it when they get into the session. It's time to sit down and run the goals, signals, and measures play. To kick things off, I typically like to share a little bit on the vision of what we're trying to do and any guardrails or timeline implications to it. Let's say our project is to build the next generation VR headset, and we have a goal to be the preferred headset provider by the year 2030. Ambitious, am I right? I typically leave around 5 to 10 minutes for us to kind of talk about this vision, ask any questions, provide clarification, all in order to ensure that the team is on the same page before we move into the next step in the process. Now with some shared context, we can now start identifying the goals that we want to pursue as a team. Have your team spend the next 15 minutes or so brainstorming what goals they would like to see us pursue over the next 6 to 12 months. Now, once those goals have been identified, then have your team prioritize the list and identify the top 1 to 3 goals that the team should pursue. The biggest mistake that I see at this point in the play is that teams will look at all the goals they created and say, wow, these are all great. We should pursue them all. The problem here is that if you want to have a meaningful outcome, you have to identify those outcomes that are most meaningful to your project. With our top goals identified, we can now go ahead and identify the signals associated with each goal. Now, signals are a form of leading indicator, meaning when we see certain patterns, it signals to us whether we're moving in the right or wrong direction. A great example for this would be seeing an increase in the number of downloads for a new app we have for our VR headset. It's not a specific target, but it's a trend in the right direction. Speaking of a specific target, it's now time to move into what I'd argue is the most critical part of the goals, signals, and measures play, and that is spending some time to identify the specific set of measurable outcomes that we believe indicate successful completion of a goal. Now, these measures should represent something for us where if we didn't hit them, they would tell us that maybe that goal isn't worth pursuing anymore. Things like the amount of sales we see in a specific market, This part of the play can take upwards to 30 minutes to complete because it can be very difficult to identify the right measures as a team. My biggest recommendation here is to avoid those binary measures, those yes, no measures, or those did, didn't measures. And now that we're at the end of the play, our team should have at most 3 goals that we're looking to pursue over the next 6 to 12 months, signals and measures on each that tell us whether or not we're moving in the right direction and what success looks like at the end of the day. And with all this in hand, our teams can now go start figuring out what can we deliver to actually make an impact on those goals. With our goal signals and measures established, it's now time to start doing the real work and time to start tracking our progress towards our goals. If you use a tool like Atlas for goal tracking, be sure to enter your goal signals and measures into the tool so that way you can keep your stakeholders up to date in terms of where things are at. To help track status, I typically recommend having some sort of check-in process where maybe once a month your team gets together to talk about updates to the signals as well as the measures. Now, if you're new to this idea of outcomes over outputs, I usually recommend a more frequent check-in. Weekly is ideal. And if after 3 to 6 months you find maybe your goals, your signals, and/or your measures are just not the right ones, like they're not moving in the direction that you actually decide you need to go in, don't be afraid to redo the goal signals and measures play to ensure that your team is realigned around where you're trying to go. You got to avoid that sunk cost fallacy.
When you create goals, be sure to create outcome-based goals versus output-based goals. They sound kind of similar. Well, you can tell the difference by looking at your goal. If it's about delivering a specific thing, then it's an output-based goal. If it's about hitting a particular target, then it's an outcome-based goal. To help with the prioritization process, I like to use dot voting. I give everyone 3 votes that they can add to the brainstormed list of goals, however they want. They can distribute them or put them all on one. After everyone has applied their 3 votes, we see which goals have the highest number. Don't get caught up on making the wording perfect on the goals, signals, and measures. Many times this play can run long because we obsess over using the correct language. As long as the essence is there and specific measures are identified, then just be okay with good enough so you can experiment.
If your team is struggling to understand what their outcomes need to be, running the goals, signals, and measures play is a fantastic way to provide the strategic guidance necessary to help your teams understand where they're trying to go and what they're trying to build.